and welcome to Craft with Sarah and day 1 of my brand new event, the Spring Craft Countdown. Over the next 14 days, I'm going to be sharing a brand new spring themed craft project with you every day to make with your Cricut machine. Today's project is one for the card makers out there, and it's a great way to use up all of your paper scraps left over from other projects. I've designed a series of tiny little squares, all with cute spring themed images. In this video, I'll show how you can use Cricut Design Space to design your own greetings card using those squares. This one has got lots of those squares on it and a little greeting in the middle, but you can go a little simpler and just use one. Just like this. Here we go. I've got one of the squares here, a little bit bigger than on the last card, and I've used some lovely pattern paper in the background. Or you can combine it and use two. So this one here has got two of the little patterns on it, and they look lovely as a little note card set or as a quick way to get all of your birthday cards done for the next few months. And if you're feeling really adventurous, see how to rotate them all around and cut off the edges of your card for something a little bit unusual. These cards are colourful, they're fun, they're definitely spring themed, and best of all, fully customisable by you for whatever type of card you want to make. Let's get started. This project is part of the 2026 Spring Craft Countdown. Download the cut files for free for the first 24 hours after this video goes live using the links in the video description or by visiting craftwithsarah.com/spring26. After 24 hours, the cut files for this project can be purchased from craftwithsarah.com/spring26 files. Or get the entire Spring Craft Countdown plus 35 extra bonus files from craftwithsarah.com/spring26 bundle. The download comes in a zip folder. You need to unzip this before uploading the SVG files into your cutting machine software. For instructions on how to do this, visit craftwithsarah.com/help and choose Cricut, Silhouette or Scan and Cut. Within there are dedicated help guides on topics such as how to upload SVGs, how to modify them to make custom projects, framing tips, and how to cut cardstock with your type of cutting machine. If you have any questions, email hello@craftwithsarah.com. Now, on with today's project. This is what the block builder design looks like loaded into Cricut Design Space. In order to offer you the most flexibility possible at using all of these little blocks on your project, it doesn't come with pre-made designs. Instead, I'm going to show you in this video how you can turn these blocks into different types of greetings card. First up, let's click on the design and then ungroup it to see all of the different blocks. Each block is then contained within its own group. You can click on the block on your canvas over on the left to select it. For our first card, we'll make a simple A2 size card. Scroll down underneath so you've got some space to work with and go into Shapes and then choose a square. And I'll drag that underneath. Design Space used to just add the squares wherever you'd scrolled, but apparently not anymore. But no problem, we can scroll down. And then untick the padlock by clicking it with your mouse. Make the width 8.5 inches and the height 5.5 inches. When that's folded in half, it will be a 5.5 by 4.25 size card. As I'm doing a bumblebee themed card, I've already decided I want to use the bee one on this one. I'll change this to yellow. If you've got a scoring wheel or stylus for your machine, it's helpful to add a score line to the base card so it's easier to fold. Go into Shapes again, or if you've still got the window open, you can click the score line. Make that the height of the card, which is 5.5 inches. Then drag a box that touches your base card and the score line and press Align and then Center. That puts the score line exactly in the middle. With those two layers still selected, press Attach, either the paperclip icon underneath or the button at the bottom of the Layers panel. Both do the same thing. Attach is what tells the Cricut we want it to do the scoring in that exact place. Next up, let's add some layers to the front of the card. I'll add in another rectangle and make it 1/4 inch smaller than my front of the card, which means it's going to be 4 inches wide and 5 1/4 inches tall. And that will go on the front like that. Change the colour, and I'm going to use this dark grey colour that's already present in some of the blocks, so I'll try and keep it all the same. And then I'll go for one more rectangle to go on top. You can either make a new one or duplicate this one and then change the size. This time I'll take 1/4 inch off again, so we're at 3.75 by 5. This piece I want to cut from some pattern paper. I'm going to use up some of my scrapbook papers on this card. To remind myself when I'm cutting it out that this will be the pattern paper, I'm going to make it a really obviously different colour that's definitely not part of the card. So let's go for a really bright green. Under Advanced, you can drag it to a different colour. So this lime green is definitely not a normal bumblebee kind of colour, so that'll remind me that one is the pattern paper one. Next, we can add the block and get it all sized. First, drag a box around your card and group all of the layers to put them together. Then press Arrange Centre Back. That moves the card right down to the bottom of the layers panel, which means when we move our blocks on top, we'll be able to see them. I'm going to use my bumblebee one. The blocks load into Design Space at 2 by 2 inches square, and actually I don't think I need to change that for this card. That is looking nice just there. However, as I'm going for my kind of yellow and black theme, the teal colour doesn't really match as well as it could, so let's change that out. I'm going to go for a darker yellow, I think. So first up, you can open up the block by clicking the arrow in the layers panel, click on the colour you want to change, and then change it in here. At the moment, I'm a little bit worried that the yellow would blend into my background paper because I'm going to be using a honeycomb design paper that I've got, which has got lots of yellow and golds on it. So I don't think there's enough distinction there at the minute. Let's make it stand out a bit more. So we know this is 2 by 2 inches. I'll add in another square and make this 2.25. So it's 1/4 inch larger on both sides. And then match it to that dark grey. And I'll have that there. If we go and drag it into there, or underneath if you don't want to put it in the group, then I think that will look much better and stand out nicer against my background. And that's it for the front of my first card. So I can delete all of these ones by selecting them all and then either press delete on your keyboard or click the trash can icon at the top. And this is now ready to cut. Give your project a save if you want to, and then connect to your Cricut machine using the option up here at the top of the screen. When you're ready to cut, press make and that will separate out all the colours for you. These are great for using up some of your scraps left over from other projects because you only need a little bit of most of the colours in the blocks. You can change the paper size if you want to in the drop down here, and then you can click and drag to move things about to change the position if you want to. Just make sure when you're moving them that nothing overlaps, otherwise they won't cut out properly. If you're changing the paper size, you would need to do that for every single colour individually. If you're new to cutting cardstock with your Cricut machine, or if you have a different type of cutting machine such as a Silhouette or Scan and Cut, head to craftwithsarah.com/help, choose your type of machine, and there are separate tutorials in there on how to cut cardstock with your machine. Go ahead and get everything cut out and then we'll see how to put your card together. Here are the pieces of my card cut out along with my lovely pattern scrapbook paper that I've used for this bit on the front. These cards are super simple to put together, which is great if you're making lots of them all at once, but also if you're after a last minute greetings card for an occasion. So first up, fold your base card in half down the score line, and then we're going to glue the front pieces together. The glue I'm using is Barely Art Glue, but I also like Collal. The reason I like these two glues is they don't bend or wrinkle the card like some glues can do. First up, put my scrapbook paper on. This is really pretty. It's got glitter in some of the shapes for a little bit of sparkle. Put it in the middle. Try and get it nice and straight so you've got a good amount of that border showing through on each side. And then we'll glue this to the front of the card. Once again, try and get this in the middle. There we go. And then while that's drying, I'll work on the square. Put my base piece here. And then this one is 4 pieces that makes up the square design, the little block, but yours might be less or it might be more. It depends on which one you've chosen to do. I'll start by, I think I'm going to leave the big square until last. So I'm going to start by gluing the white onto the yellow. I mean, there was yellow in there somewhere. It's a good idea to get all the pieces in the right order and the right way round before you start gluing, just to make sure it's all going to line up once it's stuck together. Next up, I've got my black. Because they're all square, it's easy to see if you've not quite got it lined up right. So you can wiggle it about while the glue is still dry. Still dry? Still wet. I'm not doing very well with my words today. While the glue is still wet, to get it all nice and lined up. There we go. And then I'm going to glue it to my larger square. And then glue this to the front of my card. You could use foam squares if you wanted to add a bit more dimension. By foam squares, I mean something like this. So little 3-dimensional foam squares. They're sticky on both sides, so you can put them in to build up some gap between your layers. But I want to keep this one super simple and not get too thick, because I don't want it to cost more money to post from being too thick for a regular stamp. It does kind of stand out quite nicely anyway, just because of the amount of layers of card that have gone into the block. And there we go, my adorable little bumblebee note card, all finished. You don't have to stick to just one of the blocks on a card. Here's another example. It's exactly the same layout, apart from I've used 2 instead of 1. These are the same size as this one. I just used 2 of the different blocks and I've positioned them at opposite corners. I've used a different pattern paper from that and matched the colours of the papers in the blocks to what's in the pattern. It's just another way of using them to make a slightly different type of card. If you've got a little bit more time on your hands and you're fancying a little bit more of a challenge, let's see how we can use loads and loads and loads and loads of the little block designs all in one card. That means back to Design Space. I've loaded the original SVG back into Design Space, so I've got all my pictures again, and I've made a base card. This time I'll be doing a square card. I want to use as many of the blocks as possible on this card. To make the maths a little bit easier, I'm cheating a little bit. I've made my base card here, and as you can see in the size at the top, it's 16 inches wide by 8 inches tall, which would mean it's an 8 by 8 inch square card. Now that is far too big at the moment. In fact, I would need an extra long cutting mat and super duper big card to cut something 16 inches. My final card is not going to be that big. It's going to be 5 3/4 inches, which means it will cut from regular 12 by 12 cardstock on my cutting mat. However, trying to work out what 5.75 divided by 4 is sounds a little bit too complicated. So what I did instead was, I know that my blocks are 2 inches each, so I've made this so that the front is 8 inches so I can line 4 up nice and easily. We'll get our layout all finished and then make the card smaller. Alright, so I've made my card base the same way as I did earlier in this video for the bumblebee card. we'll go Arrange Center Back to move it under all the blocks. And then click and ungroup the blocks, and now I can start lining them up in the order that I want them to appear in on the card. Let's have a look. Let's start with the heart. It doesn't really matter which order you choose. I'm going to do each one as a different block to use as many as I can. But you could use the same one, you could repeat patterns, you can change colours, anything you want. You don't have to be super accurate at lining it up. To start with, just get your basic ideas in place. I'm kind of trying to do it so that I don't have two with the same background next to each other, so I wouldn't do that because they've both got that teal. And then I want to leave a space here to add a sentiment. So let's keep going. Leave those two bits clear and then start building it up underneath. Those two yellows are quite close to each other, but I think it'll be okay. And then let's have another leaf, flower, this butterfly, and then let's go for the sunflower. Alright, so I'm happy with that as my basic layout. I haven't done this very neatly at the minute. It doesn't really matter because they're all going to cut out separately anyway. But one thing you do need to make sure is that all of your squares, your blocks, are inside your base card. Otherwise, when we resize it at the end, it won't do it quite properly. So just make sure nothing is going over the edge. You can see my alignment is a little bit messy, but when it's all finalized and cut out, all of these squares will line up against each other perfectly. When you click and select the whole card and all of the blocks, it should be saying 16 inches wide and 8 inches tall. If one of those measurements doesn't match, for example now, it says 8.122, it just means one of your blocks is outside the edge of the card. Find which one it is and move it inside. Let's add a little greeting in the middle. You can type out text or use an SVG, or if you've got Cricut Access, you can use something from there. I'll have a look under Images and type out Happy Birthday. I don't know why it's putting a full stop at the end. That is very strange. Let's go to what it's suggesting. Maybe a little quirk of Design Space at the minute. Alright, so I'm looking for a greeting where all the letters are touching, so it will cut as one bit of cardstock, and where nothing's so thin that it would be tricky to cut from card. I quite like this one, so I think I'll go for that one. I like it because there's no little dot on the eye that I might lose. Okay, make it smaller to fit in your gap. There you go, so that would be more like there. Can possibly go a little bigger. There we go, and then change the colour to something in the design. Maybe teal, that will show up nicely against the white of my background. And then delete any blocks you haven't used. And now we can resize. A recent update removed the Select All button in Design Space, which is a little bit annoying, but there are two ways you can do it instead. Either click and drag around everything and that will select it all, which you can see because everything in the Layers panel's gone green, or you can press Ctrl and A on a Windows computer or Command A on a Mac. That will also select everything. So select it all and then group your layers. Now we can resize it and everything will change in proportion. As I said, my card will be 5 3/4 inches, so I'll change the height to 5.75. Nope, not 575. That would be a very big card. 5.75, and the width should automatically change to 11.5. If I ungroup it again, each of these little blocks now is just over 1.4 inches wide. That's why I didn't want to have to manually work out the maths. It's much easier to let Design Space do it for you once you finish the design. Alright, so I'm going to get this cut out and then we'll see how to put together the card. I've cut out and glued together all of the blocks for this card, and I've laid them out in the right order following how it looked in Design Space just over here on my work surface. And then I've got my base card, which I'll fold down the score line. You can give it a go with a brayer tool to get a crisper fold if you've got one, but no problem if not. And then we can start gluing all these on. And because we measured it in Design Space, everything should press up against itself really nicely to get all the way to the edge, which it does. You can either glue everything, or you can use foam squares for some of the designs to give them a little bit of pop out, and that's what I'm going to do. So I've got my sheet of foam squares and I'm going to work through it. I'll add all the blocks on before I put on my happy birthday text in the gap. And we'll start by gluing. If you don't have foam squares, you can just glue everything. It'll still look really lovely. And you will know that you've made the card truly your own by whichever order you put all the pictures in and which ones you've chosen. Let's go for foam squares for the bumblebee. He's my little favourite one out of all of the blocks, so he gets special attention. And some foam squares on the back of this one. It's important to be quite accurate with where you stick things because we've got everything done, so it will all go up right up against each other. So if you get any that are quite a long way out of their position, it might mean the next one doesn't go on. And glue for this one. That's my top row done. Move on to the next one. Glue the leaf. And do you know what? I think what I'm going to do on this one, because I've got 4 of my blocks that have insects on them, I'm going to use my foam squares for every single insect. That means there'll be 1 in each row. And although this was completely unplanned and a sheer coincidence, they all also fall in a different position on the grid. Bee's in second place, this is in 4th, my dragonfly is 1st, and the butterfly is 3rd. So, yeah, I wish I could say I'd planned that, but I haven't. Okay, dragonfly next. I like putting this together. I find it quite relaxing doing all the gluing, and it's nice sometimes to cut little tiny things. As much as I love my giant layered designs going in frames and things like that, sometimes something really, really small is just so nice. And I love that these cards are great scrap busters, because I have way too many card scraps and really need to start using some of them. That was one of my main inspirations for these block builders, something to use up some scrap. And then the leaf. I'm really looking forward to seeing your photos that you've done with cards with these. What colours you've used, how many blocks you've used on your card, how you position them, all the things. 3 left. One of them is the butterfly, so that one will be done with the foam squares. I would love to know what you think of these little block builders, and if you'd like to see other themes done, you could maybe do a Christmas set, Easter set, a birthday set, Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, dinosaurs, wild animals, pets, dogs, cats. I don't know, it could be endless. Endless. Okay, that one actually is coming off the bottom a little bit. I'm not quite sure why. Let's just try pushing it up a bit. Alright. Look at those colours. That's so nice. The little pop on all those insect squares makes them stand out a little bit against everything else. And then I've got my happy birthday to sit snugly in the gap. I'm not going to do my gluing directly over the card because this is very, very thin. If you were struggling to cut this from cardstock or to glue it on, you could cut it from adhesive vinyl instead, and then it would basically act as a sticker, so you could just pick it up and stick it on and it would already be sticky on the back. You wouldn't need transfer tape or anything like that because it all comes off as one piece. Just be like almost like a peel-off sticker. They were some of my first ever things I ever bought when I was card making, peel-off stickers. I've still got probably about 100 packs. I really should do something with them. Let me know if you'd like to see some videos of how to use up old peel-off stickers. That might be the push I need. But anyway, here is my block builder card, completely filled in with all of those squares. I love how it looks. That is just so colourful and cheery, and yeah, very happy with that. Time for the final card example, and this time we're doing things a little bit differently. I've added in all of the blocks once again and created a base card which is 10 inches wide and 7 inches tall. This will make a 5 by 7 inch card front when it's folded. And then I've also got a 5 by 7 inch rectangle here which will be cut from pattern paper. And this time my pattern paper is going to go all the way to the edges of my card. So I can line that up roughly on there. This time, instead of putting all of the blocks looking like they do now, I'm going to rotate them and cut some of them off so it looks like they're going over the edge of the card. Let's start by building up a little pattern. Zoom back in. And let's choose some of these and start building it up so that I'll have 3 and kind of almost like brickwork on a house. I've put the 2 underneath so that the middle is where the middle is on that front one. And let's build up a few more. So this one's roughly in line with the top leaf. And then we'll go one more coming out here. You don't need to be super exact because we're only getting an approximation on the screen. We'll make it all nicely lined up when it's glued together at the end. And that one. All right, drag around all of those and group them. And then we'll move up to the card. If they're showing underneath the card, press Arrange, Bring to Front to move them to the top. Rotate them slightly. I'm going to hold the Shift key on my keyboard down when I rotate, which will make them go in that nice angle there. If you want to type the rotation, click on your group, then press the Edit button on the top left of the screen, and the rotate option is here. By pressing the Shift key when I rotated, it means it automatically did it 22.5 degrees, which I think looks nice. You don't want to go too much, otherwise it will start being hard to see, but that's just a nice little bit of rotation. You can then resize, and if you're struggling like me, I can't move that any higher than that, even though I do want them to appear higher on the card, otherwise you won't be able to see any of that one. Just drag and move it down so that there's more space on the canvas above. Now I can move it up there. You can make your blocks smaller or larger to fit your card better. I might go slightly bigger, I think. Only a little. And then drag it around and play with the positioning. What I'll do is I'll glue these onto my card in this rough position, but when I'm gluing it, I'll make sure the gaps between them are all the same. And then use a craft knife or a guillotine or a pair of scissors to cut off any bits that are going over the edge. The reason I'm not going to cut off the excesses in Design Space is because it would take a really long time. You'd have to cut each colour of each block separately into the exact shape, and it would just be much easier to do it with scissors or a craft knife. It also gives you more flexibility to play with the exact positioning once you've got it all cut out, if you've still got all of these shapes. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all of this out, and then we'll put it together. I've got my blocks cut out and stuck together, and the greetings card, and my pattern paper to go on top, which will be glued on. Fits perfectly onto the front of the card. And now I'm going to line up the blocks where I want them to go. At this point, don't worry that they're going to be overlapping the edge. We'll cut that off with a scalpel when we're done. Looking at the project in Design Space on my computer next to me as I go, trying to make sure I get it all in the right order. Or something like that. And this one's a little bit of a shame because you're not going to see very much of it. I might move everything a little bit further on so that we can see some more of it. It would be more like that. Now I'm going to glue these on, being a little bit careful because on some of them only a little bit of it will be on the card. So I want to make sure I don't accidentally glue the blocks to my desk. That wouldn't be very clever. Forgot what I was doing then and totally just put glue where it's going to be over on my desk. Let's try and rub some of that off. I was just getting into the zone of sticking them all down. One, and then that one only in that corner. If it needs a bit more glue later, we can try and put some on. Okay, now I'm going to wait for that glue to completely dry before attempting to trim off any of the edges. My glue's all dry. I've put this on a cutting mat so that I can use a craft knife and a ruler to cut off the excess. You could also use scissors if you preferred. Okay, so open it up. And I'm going to line up my ruler along the edge of the card. It will need quite a bit of force if you're using a craft knife to get through this many layers of cards, so be careful. It is probably an idea, rather than trying to get through it all in one go, to do several sort of lighter cuts until you go through it. There we go, that's coming off, perfect. You could also maybe use a paper trimmer or a guillotine. Then you could do all the sides in one go, but it depends how strong your paper trimmer or guillotine is. That one, that was easier. And now the ones on the side. Just one more left along the top. Okay, moment of truth. There we go. Oh, I like how that turned out. I was worried about this one because there wasn't much of it showing, but actually that turned out awesome. I love it. Ah, really nice. Okay, very, very happy with that one. I hope that you enjoyed this video on how to make these block builder cards. If you did, let me know in the comments which card version is your favourite and will you be giving this a try. If you enjoyed making this project along with me, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel for loads more Cricut crafts and card making fun. I hope to see you again tomorrow for day 2 of the Spring Craft Countdown, but for now, thank you so much for watching. Bye!